Hey friends, welcome to part 2 of our conversation with Kurt Jacobson all about competition tattooing. If you haven't seen part 1, you should watch that first. I'll drop the link in the show notes in the description. Even if you are not into competing at tattoo conventions, even if you don't even attend tattoo conventions, there's a lot of information that Kurt shares that's really helpful and useful just for doing larger scale work or just for managing clients' pain tolerances, approaching tattooing in the most efficient way possible. All the things that are required for competition tattooing are really, really useful just in everyday tattooing, even if you never plan to enter a competition. So in part 1, we talked a lot about the prep, a lot about the front end, getting clients who are interested in sitting for 2 and 3 day sessions and things like that. In part 2 here, we talk a lot about efficiency of working the skin, managing clientele, managing their comfort levels, things like that. Because as Kurt mentions, once a client starts to hit a threshold of pain tolerance or getting too cold or getting too hungry or getting some type of level of discomfort, it's very hard for them to rebound. So you have to be proactive and manage these things on the front end. And this conversation focuses a lot on that. So let's jump on into the episode and I'll see you at the end.
Section 2 is client slash pain management, because I consider them to be married, right? Happy little spouses. Client management and pain management, even though they sound like the same thing, they're different, and they both need to be addressed on a consistent basis if you want to reliably be able to get people to sit for a long period of time. So again, I treat every day like a competition. I can just roll in, right? I can just roll just straight the fuck in, you know me. So yeah, the reliability thing or the consistency thing is kind of the critical factor, and it does require a whole extra component to the job. So I have 14 points and then a quick last note to kind of cover. So if it's cool with you, I'll just take them one by one, and I'll pause at the end of each. So if you got questions or if you want to fill, each section or whatever has a couple of bullet points. Would you prefer to pause me at the end of each, or would you prefer like the end of each section? So each one has like 4 subsection little things.
Yeah, let's just wait till the
Cool.
end of each
Okay.
kind of section. Let's just roll through. If there's something I feel like is urgent, I'll jump
Cool.
in.
Okay. I did order these in what I consider to be like critical priority, like what's most important, a hierarchy. I know you love that kind of terminology. So a hierarchy of importance. So the 1 through 14 is listed in importance, but also understand that that's a little subjective. And even myself, when I was listing it out and trying to find a priority order, there were some that I was like, is this 1 or 2 or 3? So, they could be pretty close. So, but in general, these are listed in the order of importance that I think they should be handled. Okay. So again, we're talking about client slash pain management. And I will bounce back and forth between the two, even though they are different things. So number 1, most important, is honest communication. And that sounds simple, but it's not, man. You can't help somebody if you can't understand what they need. And again, that sounds really, really, really simple, but it's not. If you don't believe me, get into a group of people and try to figure out what you guys are having for food. People don't want to share their opinion because they don't want to be judged for their choices. And in the same way, your client doesn't want to be judged essentially for being a baby while they're sitting in the chair. So even though you talk to them about honest communication, they will still try to lie to you on a consistent basis so that you don't think that they're not cool. So again, back to an emphasis on them being a champion, that involves a huge portion of that is essentially room for them not to be a champion, as stupid and silly as that sounds. But that's why it's number 1, honest communication. Best thing you can do is to disarm and humanize yourself. And that's difficult for a lot of people to do because boundaries and barriers. So again, with the caveat that you're good at boundaries, right? And you have to be good at boundaries with this in mind. You have to know your limits and know like what your stuff is, but disarm and humanize yourself. So a lot of times what I do is I talk about how much I dislike tattooing, or how obvious their discomfort should be, or how common their discomfort is, or how tough they are in comparison to other clients that you've had. And whether it's BS or not, disarm and humanize yourself. It will go a huge way into the client feeling more comfortable communicating with you honestly. Also, it will never happen automatically. A lot of things we try to just George Foreman and set it and forget it. And this, hey, I've asked you if you're good. You said you're good. Well, when are you not good? When is that going to change? So all that I'm almost forcing it upon them, right? And I put a priority on their comfort. So I try to remove codependency as much as possible. Every client who comes into our studio or our chair at a competition, you're like, hey man, how you doing? Their first thing is like, well, hey, if you're comfortable, right? You're the artist, you got to be comfortable. And I take a lot of time and energy into reversing that. I don't care how uncomfortable I am as the artist. You need to be comfortable because it will make everything easier. So again, disarm and humanize yourself as much as you possibly can because you have to be able to get to honest communication. And it's
Yeah.
hypercritical. So that's part number one.
There is a position that everyone is comfortable, and that response that you get that's so common is, "Hey, you're the one working.
Yep.
You know, it's more important that you're comfortable." I have almost the exact same response. Like, man, if you're uncomfortable, I will end up
Yep.
uncomfortable. There's no way around
No way
it.
around it.
So there is a way that we can both be comfortable. We just need to take the time to find it. You know.
The problem is that they will, no matter what you do, they will feel silly during all of the time that it takes you to feel or get them comfortable. They will feel silly. It's not that I have experience, but I've got a wife and I'm married. It's like a gynecology exam. Is like, no matter, it doesn't matter, you can't scooch close enough to the end, and then it's always super awkward to get, you know what I'm saying? It's just that period of time is going to feel silly and awkward, and that's okay, right? So like, I will do really dumb cartoony things to make myself more of a goofy fool as we're doing things so that they feel more comfortable when they accidentally fart or have a moment where they don't understand. Like, dude, I'm sure anybody listening to this who tattoos can relate. You go ahead, tell your client to lay on their back and watch what happens, because they'll sit on their side, they'll lay on their head, they'll fold themselves into odd, they won't understand how to do what you're saying. And it's because they feel silly and then they can't process anything. And it's the same with communicating, in particular, discomfort. They will blind themselves by not wanting to feel or look silly or wimpy. And you need to be aggressive. You need to be aggressive on that. It's like the biggest thing. So that's number one. Client and or pain management is put the most emphasis that you can on their comfort as priority, and they need to communicate with you when they are even slightly uncomfortable. Which brings me to number two, if you had no more for number one.
Let me say
Yeah.
one more thing on number one. I have a trick that I've noticed that people will do where I'll use an arm as an example, a sleeve as an example, where they're dropping out towards me, and they're very conscious to not make unnecessary contact with my body. And I don't mean that, this may come out sounding in a weird way. I will intentionally tuck
Yep.
them into me,
Precisely.
and make it very clear that there's no personal space in tattooing. There's nothing weird about your hand being on my love
Yeah.
handle. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. We have to find a spot that we can both be stable and comfortable and relax kind of into each other. And so I think the faster that you like establish that like physical connection with them, like forcing them to like,
Yeah.
to like wrapping them up essentially, is a great way to like, fast track that.
And talk about it, like
Yeah.
everybody, like exactly what you just talked about. people have their own personalities and their own little flavors to this, right? Some people might be more jokey to help you, some people might be more whatever the case may be, and that will land or not land depending on the person who's sitting in your chair, whatever it is. But the better you are is the better that you can kind of find what makes them understand that better. And to your point, yeah, dude, like just like a chick, man, I'm a little heavier, a little chunkier, and like the amount of tit grabs that happen is fuck, it's outrageous, dude. Like I constantly got a handful of my tit, and it's something that I talk about in a way that's like, hey, this is gonna make you feel awkward. It used to make me feel awkward because I'm a human, and now I'm so jaded. Tit squeeze, whatever, it doesn't matter. It's your stress ball. You go nuts, and like that's my to help them,
Right.
you know, turn it right. And that's dependent on the client too. Sometimes I'm like, hey, like I use because I have kids too, and it helps also. I use a lot of silly words intentionally to help disarm. So I'll be like, I'm gonna snuggy wuggies up to you, you know, and just kind of get on in there, and I'm silly in a way that helps them know that not only is contact okay, but like they're okay making casual or awkward contact, even if it's outside of the context of that. Like we're okay with the space and we're okay expressing when we're not okay with it. You know? Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So, dude, yeah, number one's
Yeah.
critical, honest communication. But it's hard. It's harder than it sounds. It's harder than it sounds. It does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of fucking work,
Yeah.
especially with a stranger, because I got to do it fast, man. I got to do it fucking quick. I'm like, hey, man, I'm weird as shit. Like, aha, you know, and then just we can get into a lot of the other stuff, but again, disarming and humanizing is a thing, man. It's a thing. You ready
Good.
for number two?
All right. Number
Okay.
two.
This one is a little bit on the critical side. Obviously, it's number two. I would consider number two and three equally critical. But we'll start with this one because it's a little simpler, I suppose. Management, whether it's client or pain, is proactive only. You can never do it from a salvage capacity. People cannot recover from below a point. In my head, I've always said it at about 30%. What I mean by 30% is every person in their life and in each day has a battery, right? And that battery is different for each person. And just like batteries in our phones, as we use them or misuse them, its charging holding capacity is different. It's depending on how you charge in is different, depending on how many active tabs you have is different, so on and so forth. But each person is a potential energy battery within any given project, whether it's a 4 hour tattoo, an 8 hour tattoo, a 30 hour tattoo, or a 45 hour tattoo. It doesn't matter. Everybody has a battery. The only way to really significantly recharge that battery is with sleep. There isn't another equation to it. Sleep is the only way to significantly recharge your battery. And that means everything that you're doing throughout the day is either draining or minorly boosting the battery. For example, a sugar fucking hit or a meal will give you a small boost, right? But essentially, you're always in negative. So you need to understand what that is and also understand that you can't recover from a certain point. So recovery should never be the goal. Management is always proactive. It's about getting the most out of your energy release. How do I drain the least? How do I remove active applications in your background? Whatever the case may be. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Great
the
point.
other part of that is if, and you will, everybody does, once you get them below that 30% battery level, just like on your phone, it is exponential drainage. You don't actually have 30% left, you have 5% of working time left. So not only is it you can't get below a point, but once you do, it's a fool's gold. You don't have what you think you have. And that's why it's extra critical to be aware of what percentage that client is at and why honest communication is so important. Most people don't really understand this or have this as a concept, but humans are humans and there are physics to the world that we can't ignore. So everybody has a battery. Everybody's technically gets 100% of their capacity from sleeping. I might have more capacity than Jake. Jake might have more than somebody else, whatever the case may be, but everybody has a capacity, and your capacity will fluctuate a little bit. Rest, sleep, good sleep is the only thing that brings you back up as close to 100% as you possibly can. Does that make sense? So, a re-emphasis on the importance of limits and language with your clients, because just like you should be aware of your limits, you're going to do double that work by helping a client on the quick find out what their limits are and help them to find what their litmus test is for that. Most people don't do that much challenge, which is why as you compete and find yourself, experienced clientele will become more and more helpful to you as you go along. The less experienced the client is, the more work that you're going to have to do in management, especially things like this. Make sense? You cannot lie to your doctor and then wonder why you're not getting better. It just doesn't work or make sense. Your client needs to understand that they can't lie to you and expect you to be able to help them in any sort of way. So the more honest that you can be with your communication, the better, because management is proactive only, period. My favorite thing is the 1 to 10 pain scale. It's obnoxious, everybody hates it, and it turns into a game. Nobody, just like with a food choice or picking the movie that we're watching, nobody wants to give you a number and nobody wants to be honest about what that number is. But we turn it into a game, we work on the honest communication, and I check in on that number all the time. I am simultaneously checking that person's body language at the same time to see how congruous what they're saying to me is with what's actually happening physiologically. And that helps me to get an average litmus test for what this person's language is. If this person says 3, is that actually a 6? Do you see what I'm saying? So you have to pay enough attention to get all of that, but being proactive is the only way to do it. So you shouldn't wait till your client's flinching to ask them how they're doing. That's why it's number 2. It's super critical. Anything, you got questions?
Well, I'm going to guess that you may get to your responses based on their answers or their communication.
Yes.
Is it as simple as, okay, moving from area to area, or you're
Yep.
taking breaks and things like
And
that?
truthfully,
Okay,
the better
we'll
you
get to
get
all
at
that.
it, I don't wait for them to say it, because I've so experienced with checking their body language and what they're saying that the first 3 times that I check in with you, I have a good read for what your body's actually saying. I don't even need to hear you say it anymore. I could be like, that's a 3, that's a 6, that's a 7, we're at a 4, okay, we're at a 3. All right, we're at a 4, we're creeping up to a 5. I can read it as I'm moving with the client, but only because I'm paying that much attention to it.
Hey, today's video is brought to you by us, the Fireside Tattoo Network. Have you heard of Fireside Simplify? It is a course that we designed here for intermediate to advanced tattooers who are stepping up from small to medium-sized tattoos up to larger scale tattooing. And it's a way to reduce the number of options that you allow yourself at each point in the process so that you design better tattoos faster and with less effort. We've all heard of analysis paralysis, where you have so many options that you just don't know what to do. You're staring at a blank page, or you're staring at an outer arm, and you're trying to figure out where to start, and you're searching Google and Pinterest for reference images. Simplify was designed to help you to make these types of decisions faster and easier by using if-then scenarios. I would be thrilled if you would click either the card above or the link in the description below, which will lead you to a video that will explain more about the benefits of Fireside Simplify. Now back to the episode.
It is an equal part of my mental thought process as what tone am I using? What color am I using? Is that a sharp edge or a hard edge or soft edge, or what's, you know what I'm saying? It is another thing to add, but I consider it equal importance.
Got it.
And again, that doesn't mean it's
Good.
right or
Yeah.
wrong. It's just what I choose to put a focus on, which is why I can rely, knock on wood, but I mean, I have yet to have anybody quit out. You know what I'm saying? I have never had any, well, I haven't won everything. Obviously, there's plenty of times where I don't win. How could you win everything? But like, You made it through, right? Because you got like a good plan, you know what's happening, your client's super committed to it, everybody's on the same page, and most importantly, I don't allow myself to bullshit myself into not being able to hit the objective I've set. Number 3, you ready?
Yeah. Number 3. Let's hear. Yeah, let's hear
Number
it.
3, when I first did my draft, so I did an outline for all this, and then I exploded the outline into a notebook. I'm actually writing a handbook for my shop folks with all this because it's very detailed. And then I boiled it back down because I'm really trying to hit an hour a page, and there's no fucking way. So, anyways, number 3, I really almost put at number 1 in terms of importance, even over like communication and management, because without it, almost everything else you'll be working uphill. So, number 3 is probably the most difficult for people to really come into grips with, and I also have like a little method thing that I'll tease with a very dumb diagram, just so people can understand a little bit of part of my efficiency program. But number 3 is efficiency of holes. Don't use 12 holes if 4 holes will do the job. So you have to know how many holes are actually going to do the job, and then work only to that upward limit. That sounds ridiculously obnoxious because so many holes are happening at once, but paying that crazy close attention to what you're doing is going to help you to either limit or cause more damage with control rather than accidentally. So efficiency of holes, in my opinion, is one of the most important things to pay attention to when competing. If you're just tattooing and it doesn't matter, right? Then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But if you're competing, then you want to be able to do the best result in the shortest amount of time. I have found that ultimately it does lead to efficiency in decision making and an increase in actual product because you're making things faster, right? And not faster isn't always better, but like something skilled, if you're really skilled at it, you will automatically start doing it faster. It's just how it works, right? So efficiency of holes. Again, don't use 12 holes if four will do. And that gets really, 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 really nuanced with specific hand techniques and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to touch on 2 things, even though there are a billion things that I could talk about in this field. I could spend 4 hours just talking about hole efficiency. Not a problem, dude. It wouldn't even be difficult. So I'm only choosing to talk about 2 critical things that I personally choose. Not that they are right and anything else is better, but I have found them best to fit my purposes when pursuing competition tattooing. Make sense? Okay. First, stipple shading. I stipple shade, right? I stipple shade as a foundation for everything. There's a degree of stylistic choice to that for sure, but a big part of it is I've chosen to do that in my tattooing because it is quick and it is true. So it will give you a true result visually quickly. You won't have to see how it's going to settle or heal to know what it's going to look like. It will also give you space in between needles of non-traumatized skin. So you will have areas of essentially relief, which helps when it comes to how much trauma I'm causing to the skin. Again, true value, so you know exactly how dark or light that's going to be. And then also holds very well because you're using a liner, you're going to end up a little bit deeper in the dermis more reliably than if you used a mag. Does that make sense? So for that reason, I use stipple shading in everything that I do. I have a little diagram I'm going to tease with it to explain, because in addition to the stipple method, how I structure my shading choices is part of what adds to the efficiency. So if you'll bear with me, we could do it on a Fireside, a different thing. I just did it on a stupid piece of paper. I hope this is okay. So first thing I'm going to show is my method, first thing I'm going to show is everybody else's method of shading here. So when you're trying to create a dimensional cube, you have like a 1, 2, and a 3. 1 is your darkest, 2 is your medium, and 3 is your light. So you're going to isolate each shape, and then you're going to pick each tone. So in 1, I'm going to make a square with dark. two, I'm going to make a rhombus with your medium, and I'm going to make the same thing on its side with light. And you're going to spend a lot of time carefully with those edges and tone and all that type of stuff. Like a veneer or like a layering process, I choose to work in this way. Same result, but I don't switch my tone back and forth. I build it up by layering. So the first, I will do this square. At the end result, it will have 3 layers on it, which will be dark. This will have 2 layers on it, which will be medium over here and then dark right here. And then this will have 1 layer here, 2 layers here, and 3 layers here, giving you dark, medium, and light. And the way that I make those decisions while I'm stipple shading helps to make every decision that I'm making the most efficient that it can be, because you are grouping your problems rather than solving them individually. Does that make sense? There isn't a name that I have for it or anything like that, but I just, it's just how I choose to work in groupings, right? Like when you're doing line work, you group lines that are in the same direction because your muscle memory is already built into it. You're already stretched in that direction, and you quickly and efficiently move on to the next section. This is the same thing, but with a value and form approach to it. It is a little more complicated because it requires seeing things or practicing seeing things in that kind of way. But ultimately, it leads to much more efficient whole placement. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And now you are just to clarify, not only are you shading these pieces, you're coloring
Correct.
these pieces, which means that you might have 3 passes for
Oh,
that
you'll have way
one
more than
for the
that.
first
Yeah, dude, you'll
face
have way more than that.
before you even get to
Yep.
color, right? You might have 3 passes before you start
Oh,
a
yeah,
color.
even more than that, because I
Yeah.
simplified that just so that it could be more easily understand. But I usually work in like a 5 to 7 layer of just value before I even get to color.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I
Oh,
know.
wow.
But
Okay.
that's what I'm saying is the only way to work that way is to be that critical or careful about how many holes you're putting in. You can't just do it indiscriminately. You know what I'm saying? It looks chaotic, but it's not. It's you've seen how dialed in I get, right? Like you have to be paying attention. Actually, dude, I'll give you the analogy, the next one. So do you have more questions? I'm sure we could dive in on
No, go. Yeah. I'm
that
sure we
method,
could
right?
keep rolling on this, but let's
But
keep
that's how I
going there.
approach
Yeah.
so stipple shading with that shadow cube method is what I call it, or what I chose to call it for this because I didn't have a name for it. Coloring, right? Let's talk about coloring on top of it, right? So I do value first always, and I always do it with stippling. That way, no matter what colors I'm choosing, I can only be so wrong. If the value's correct, whatever colors you're choosing, you can only be so wrong. It'll still look reasonably harmonious. And then additionally, longevity, it will last well, especially when it's punched in with a liner. Now, it's not lining, but if you're doing good value with a liner, it will hold up as strongly as line work. So if you're good with your contrast, your edges, and those types of things with value, you will be set the same as with a line work would really set you up for. Again, you got to be pretty proficient, but it's a guaranteed for the longevity of the tattoo, no matter what decision you make going forward. And again, for that reason, I always set up with stipple shading value in particular. So color color packing up on top. You want to use the values that you've already set up, right? No matter what, you already set it all up. So don't change your mind halfway through. You're using the values that you've already set up, which should make your decision making that much easier as you go through. What I like to tell people is focus on changing temperature more than tone. We don't need to worry about if a red's going to be a dark or a medium or a light red because you've already set it up with value. If you go in with a mid-tone local value red, local color red, then things that are in the dark spectrum will pull that black through it because I shade with black really only, not diluted black, but I shade with black only. And that will bring that tone down automatically without you doing anything. So you don't need to worry about a careful transition from a dark red to a medium red to a light red. You've already set it up. So just pack in whatever it is for that area, and worry more about temperature shifts than tone shifts, like how dark or light something is. Um, the next one, which is going to be controversial, and I have a little analogy. I am a little afraid to say this one in particular, but I think it's important, at least for my method. Again, it is not the right way to do things. It is just the most efficient way that I have found, in regards to keeping low trauma as a priority, right? I will never use circles in a packing or a filling technique ever. And the reason for it for me is, no matter what, at some point in your circular motion, you are slicing side to side and you are causing more holes than you need to in about 20% of what your motion would be. So when I'm here and moving this way, all those needles are stacked, no problem. But when I'm moving this way, you're hitting each one of those each time as you come around. And so for about 20-ish% of your motion, you're doing the job, but you're causing way more trauma than you need to. So my analogy is this: if you're deer hunting and you decide you want to go deer hunting, you can use a rocket launcher. And a rocket launcher is a guaranteed kill every time you go out there, right? But a rifle in experienced hands who knows what they're doing is going to do just as well. The trick is, I want to be in the forest with a pocket knife. The reason for it is, the more difficult I make that, the more attention that I am going to pay to what I'm doing. If I'm trying to kill a deer with a pocket knife, I have to watch every single step that I'm doing and every portion of everything. And it's very high accountability, but it will ultimately, over the long term, yield the best results. Now, again, I do understand that it's crazy, because it is technically faster to pack in circles by a good measure. It is. I'm not always looking for fast. I'm looking for fast with the least amount of trauma. And for that reason,
Right.
I choose to never use circles. And that's a big part of what I do.
Yeah. 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 And another thing that's important to back up and look at what we're talking about. Like people, if you're using circles, which a lot of people watching this will
Yes,
be, you're probably not passing over that area 4 or 5 more times that day. You're probably not wiping over that area again tomorrow and
correct.
Sunday. You're probably doing that once and letting that heal. So it's
And it will work.
there's
And it will work well. It's a viable technique that works extremely well. But exactly what you just said, like, people
yeah,
talk to me all the time, like, how are you able to come back and work into something and still guaranteed a good heal without a muddiness or anything like that? Well, it comes down to the efficiency of holes. If there are too many holes, your skin is open and pigment can come in from the top, but it works like a vacuum. It has to be kind of pulled in. So if there's not too many holes, then inflammation compresses all that holes and seals them from things getting inside. So like what you said is, I can work the next day without fear of anything if I'm super careful about my holes. But you're 100%, that's the only thing that I'm talking about, is like, that's the only purpose for this method, is like that. I will say I did originally develop that method as a way to guarantee heals so that I wouldn't have to do as much in the way of touch ups.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I, I, the side to side motion that happens with circles is something that I recognized as a problem for myself. 25 years ago, probably when I started tattooing. Low back tribal was a very, very common thing, and this was before the invention of curved mags. We all had straight mags. We were only using coils, and I was trying to get on the edge of the mag to get tapers, and I had the worst problem with slicing people up. And so I got really aware really quickly of what it looked like to cut someone. with a mag moving in the wrong direction or moving sideways. So you can go back and watch videos that I did, probably 5, 6, 7 years ago on color packing or whatever on YouTube, where I talk about kind of using a shovel type of motion rather than a circular motion. For that very reason, it was just something that was burned into me early on because of my own mistakes. So yeah, that's yeah.
And there's, for me also, there's a lot in exactly the angle that you choose. There's a lot in the distance that you travel with your marks, how far you travel, and that translates to speed, like how fast you're moving. The bigger that you're trying to move, the faster that you're ultimately going to be moving, and the farther apart those holes or those marks are ultimately going to be, pretty much no matter what. So there is a shit ton of nuance that's kind of cycled into exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, for the same reason, man, I was like, anywhere where I try to move in that direction, you end up with patchy saturation, or you end up with traumatized skin that pulls ink out because you tore it up. You know, anytime I've seen something come back with ink not where it should be, is because I caused too much trauma, too many holes in that particular area, and it's easy to be like, oh well, that's too many passes. But I've discovered the big variable in that is, what do your passes look like? Because a pass with napalm is very different than a pass with a 9 millimeter. You know what I'm saying? It's very different. So you gotta be able to monitor exactly how much trauma you're causing, or how many holes you're putting in, not by counting, but by feel, per stroke that you're making, and then how controlled are you locking each one of those strokes in to each other, and then building on that. So yes, it is incredibly intense. That's why I say only an idiot goes out deer hunting with a pocket knife. It's very stupid. It's not advised. But if you really want to be good at nuance and subtlety, which a lot of this requires, then making it harder for yourself actually makes it easier for yourself in the weirdest way possible. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's all well said.
Cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's why
that's
efficiency
good.
of holes
Okay.
is number three for me. My priority is always a little bit on a lot. My priority is always a lot on not causing too much damage. Right. The more you pay attention to it, the better you'll be at it. Really, more than anything else. Cool. Fuck, I'm taking so much time. I'm sorry, Jake. I tried to chop
You're
it
doing
down. Number
great.
four, eating and sleeping, which are obvious, right? And they are obvious, but obvious is not always, or rather, obvious is easily missed, I should say. Because it's obvious, we assume it doesn't need to be said, and when it's not said, it's not really focused on, and then it's neglected, and then it doesn't happen. So, eating and sleeping, hyper important, right? This should be examined and discussed often, ahead of time, during, after, or reminded all the time with your client, because it's hard to remember. It's hard to remember or put a priority on it, especially with so much else going on. Time will move very weirdly, especially when you're competing. So it needs to be examined and discussed often. Um, Sleeping well, like I said earlier, sleeping is the only real way to gain any like solid battery back. So the more that you can do it, and the better that you can do it, is obviously better. So for most people, especially with multiple day pieces, your skin is your first line of defense, right? Protects shit from getting in. That's its primary function. Your second line of defense is your inflammatory response, which is ultimately what causes the most amount of discomfort, is things swelling. Almost every injury, all the pain is really more so than anything else from inflammation, but it's your second line of defense against shit getting into you. The third line of defense is your immune system, and that kicks in every single time that you get tattooed for long enough. Tattoo flu is a real thing because it is literally a fever. It is literally a fever, because your body is triggering it like something is getting inside of it. If your inflammation response is triggered long and hard enough, your immune system automatically comes into action. So, this translates to sleep in the way that, given the right circumstances or opportunity, your client should be able to sleep pretty well all by themselves. The right circumstances are kind of up to you to discuss with them. Like, don't go home and start binge watching whatever show that you were interested in. You know what I'm saying? Your focus and your priority should be in getting to sleep as quickly and as easily as you can. Get fed, get sleep, and then come back. Make sense? Um, I tell people to pack for a day trip in regards to eating. The important thing that people are always a little bit surprised by is that eating really becomes a chore if you're doing it properly. Feeding yourself for that much damage and that much stuff that's going on is like you won't want to eat by the end of the weekend. You should be eating meals which will feel fast and forced by the time that you're doing it. And then snacking every time that we take a break. It could be every hour, every 2 hours, or every 3 hours. In addition to hydrating and all that stuff. So obviously hydration is important. For some reason I didn't even put it in here, but a ridiculous amount of water in the same time as eating. I should say consuming rather than eating, because it should obviously be both. Yeah, it should be both. Um, yeah, that's it for eating and sleeping, because it is pretty self-explanatory. But like I said, it's easily ignored, even though it is self-explanatory. And I've watched a lot of people go out around me just for that stupid reason. Because by the time you realized it, we're in recovery, and you can't do recovery. You as the artist weren't paying enough attention. Your client's under 30%. They're done, dude. They're done. You let it too far for that.
Yeah, yeah. So something I'll add to that for both the client and the artist is the importance of the change of positions. They say the best position is the next position, or the best position is not the same position. And I notice that when my clients get up, a lot of times they're like walking over to the mirror and they're looking to see what we've gotten done, and they're almost like hesitant to move too much for either they're afraid they're going to mess up the tattoo, or it's going to hurt, or it's too swollen. But none of that is true. Like, you're not going to hurt. Even if you've been working around the knee the whole day, bending and stretching your knee isn't going to destroy the tattoo, and it's really not even going to hurt once you do it. Like, it's all fresh, it's all brand new. It's fine. It's not like day three when it's starting to get peely and scaly. So I always try to, for the artist and the in the client, I always try to make sure that we're getting a different position. For the artist, getting out of that closed up position and opening up. For me, I've got a really great thing that I was taught of, like pressing into my chin and dropping my belly so that I get that, like they call it the thoracic area, that mid back area, but pressing your skull kind of back,
Yes.
your jawbone kind of back is really a great thing to do. So, but yeah,
I'm going to be doing
eating,
that.
sleeping, and
Thank you, Jake.
It's a great one. Yeah, it's a great one. So.
That's incredible. Because, well, yeah, obviously, and I'm not super touching on a lot of it because this is more about the client and the pain management. But at the same time as you're maintaining the client, you got to be maintaining for yourself. Yeah, for sure. And the reason that I'm not really talking, I was talking to Emma about it earlier, and I felt inauthentic putting it in here because it's the one thing I don't do, even though I know I should. And if I don't do it, I don't feel right telling other. Yeah, I just can't, right? But I will stress how important it is. I will say it is fucking critical. Because yeah, dude, I definitely am doing repair work on my own body, like what you're talking about. And just like what we're talking about here for a potential tattoo, my life has a battery too, and my body has a battery too. And if I let myself get to recovery, then we're already off. So exactly what you're talking about is like, yeah, it's equal critical to make sure that during the process of all of this that your posture is so simple and so hard. It's so hard. It's crazy sitting upright. Because it puts your work further away from you than you're comfortable with, and you automatically want to get in there closer, and it becomes that thing. So like practicing that, yeah, for sure. And like you said, breaks and stretching too. So yeah, I'm not great, so I can't lecture on it. I'm sorry, I'm not. No,
Yeah,
I'd love to.
it's hard. It's hard to do, but it's I'm 48, started when I was 20, so this is 28 years for me, and it's not even an option
It's not.
anymore. It's like it just, they're like I physically couldn't make a single. I work noon to 6, 3 days a week, by Thursday at 3 o'clock, if I hadn't been like taking those times to do those types of movements throughout the day, I wouldn't finish the
Couldn't
third
do it.
day,
Yeah.
and I'm only working three. Wouldn't do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And
Yeah. So
I fully
yeah.
understand that. So as I'm talking about how much commitment this takes and stuff like that, yeah, it's equal parts important to know that as much commitment as it takes an equal toll. It really does. And I do push myself very hard, and I don't get to escape those consequences like anybody else. So just like managing your client, manage yourself as well if this is something that you choose to pursue.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
All right.
Number
What's
five
next?
is
Number five.
temperature. So temperature is the fucking one. The fucking one.
Physical
Physical
temperature of
temperature,
the
yeah,
room.
or temperature of their
Oh
body,
yeah,
or
yeah,
it's subjective because it can move
yeah,
around depending on what's happening, or even
yeah.
inflammation. Bye, Abby. Even inflammation can increase or decrease temperature, and same with your immune response. It can do a lot of crazy things with you. Let alone the fact that no convention hall has it dialed in terms of like what works or functions well for an active temperature, and that's not really on them as much as the unpredictability of humans is like how many people are going to be in here. Maybe there's 400 now, so we got to turn off the air, and then later there's not, and somebody forgot to kick it back, or who cares. But in any situation where I've been competing, you will run the entire gambit from sweltering fucking hot all the way to fucking, yeah, dude, beyond cold. And I can tell you, damage to your body will magnify the cold will magnify that discomfort by an order of magnitude. Per degree that you're cold, it's going to make the feeling that much more unbearable or unpleasant. And just like with everything else, you got to get ahead of it. So having your clients plan for all occasions is critical. So don't care what year it is, don't care where we're going, bring a winter hat, bring a blanket, or more than one. Bring multiple clothing options for pretty much every season, pretty much everything, all the way to next to naked, all the way to if I could put on a sleeping bag, I would. Because it's the best thing. And if you couple that with good, honest communication that you're checking in with, you should be able to reasonably get ahead of temperature. You will never be ahead of it because you will always be a lobster in a pot. You won't really be able to feel the consequence of what temperature it is almost until it's too late. So the better that you are about checking in with it, or even leaving the particular room that you are in, will help to give you an idea for what an average temperature homeostasis should be. A lot of times I've been tattooing in a hall. I go out to take a bathroom break. When I get in there, I'm like, the bathroom is a normal human temperature. And I'm like, oh my God, I wouldn't even felt how different this feels until I took that break. And the last break we took was 2.5 or 3 hours ago. My client's been sitting here getting slowly colder the whole time and not really even knowing it. So even if I ask them and they'll be like, yeah, I'm good. Not because they're BSing me, but because they don't know. So that's always the thing. It's like sometimes they're BSing you, sometimes they don't know. Sometimes they're really good. Who knows? But you have to be so in tune with what they're saying in relation to their body language to know what that temperature feels like for them, because that is critical. That will take anybody out. The toughest people I know, actually, my client, he did Health City, and not this past one, although that dude's a fucking hero too. But one of the different ones, who cares? Anyways, it got super fucking cold, and he's dead inside. He can handle anything that I throw at him, and temperature took him out. We were planning to go all night, and we ended up going back and sleeping for about 3 hours. But not really for sleep or rest. It was temperature, man. And we didn't even really recognize that until we left, that it was that much of a big deal. So temperature, dude, paying attention to it, because it will cripple anybody. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, and with this being particularly on competition tattooing, temperature is something that obviously you can control in your studio. But if you've done many conventions, well, we were just at Space City together. The very first year that Space City moved to that Von Braun place what they're in right now was so ridiculously cold that I like. I personally, I normally am trying not to drip sweat on my client while I'm tattooing. I just stay hot no matter how cold they get. I was frigid. My clients were frigid. And once they get to that point that they're starting to tremble or teeth chattering or whatever, man,
Done.
there's no saving
None.
that. It's over.
None.
Yeah, it's
It's
over.
been over for a while. They're just stubborn, you know? It's like,
Yeah,
and you
right.
can only take stubborn so far. And I know that because I'm super stubborn. So, like, I will tell you exactly how far you can take stubborn. And with that, with temperature, you can't out stubborn temperature. You cannot do it. I'm sorry to put it even fifth down on the list because it's that much of a big deal. But I couldn't put it higher. Other stuff took the fucking priority. But it is that important temperature. It will take out everybody. It will take out everybody, even females who we all know are way fucking tougher, dude. Temperature will take out females for sure, too. Yeah, and they're way way tougher. It's human. Yeah, exactly. And there's no way only to compensate for it ahead of time. So what I like to tell people is you want to be comfortable, but you want to be on the warm side of comfortable.
I agree. That's a great, yep, great way. I start every single day when my client comes in and first sits down. I don't I don't just ask them, "Are you comfortable in here?" I will, like you were talking about earlier, with the pain management, saying uh, oh, this area, like you're handling this area a lot better than I would, with the pain management. I will say is it cold in here to you? Things like that. Like I'm assuming that it's cold. Is it cold in here to you? Like, no, I'm pretty comfortable. Like, all right, just feels cold to me. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I'm not putting it on them so much.
That yeah,
Yeah.
that's a super good one. I mean, in studio, I always, especially if somebody's gotten tattooed by me more than once, they know because I tell them like they have control of the thermostat. So you don't even have to tell me. Just wait for me to take a piss and then just go fuck. I don't care, right? Whatever. And almost every client in studio ends up damn near 80 degrees in the room. Almost every client, every single day. People come into my room, they're like, "Why is it so fucking hot?" I'm like, "Dude, this is what it takes because you want to be on the slightly warm side of comfortable. And of course, that waxes and wanes, but people can get like a good breath of fresh air or take off a blanket and feel refreshed. You can't come back from being cold. You can't warm enough to go again. You just can't. You just can't. So, temperature is critical, and cold is a fucking killer. What I like to tell people is, cold is a death sentence for your endurance. So if you're cold, you've already wrote the fucking death sentence. We've taken off your max potential already. It's a guaranteed dead from this point. So kind of go into that. And then the other thing with temperature is that I tell people that it's unpredictable, and there is nothing wrong from looking like an idiot, being like, "Give me my sleeping bag," and then "Get me the fuck out of this," put on a fucking thing with a fan, and then "Give me a fucking winter hat, but only in my fucking tidy whities." I don't care. And if you don't care what you look like, you're better at making yourself comfortable. So let's get comfortable.
All right, so that does it for part two. We have one more part coming out with Kurt that will wrap this entire series up. I think I mentioned it at the end of part one, but at the end of all of this, we're going to do a live drawing night for everyone with Kurt. So if you have any questions on any of this stuff, you can beam in, draw with us, and ask questions, and he's happy to sit and talk. Make sure that you're signed up for our Tattoo Tips Tuesday for our newsletter, and we'll reach out and let you know whenever that is going to happen. It'll be in the next several weeks after we wrap up this entire series with Kurt. If you'd like to draw with Kurt or get to know Kurt on a regular basis, then you should check out the Inside Fireside Tattoo Club. I'm in there. Kurt's in there. In fact, we just did a drawing night on Friday, and Kurt and myself were the only two people in the drawing night. So sometimes it's a pretty small night. You can jump in and get some feedback. Sometimes we'll have several people in there. Sometimes it's a pretty small group. So if you like small, intimate settings where you can like watch other people draw and get feedback on your drawings, our drawing nights are great for that. So I'll leave a link to the Inside Fireside Tattoo Club. We would love to have you in there. Thank you, as always, for supporting what we do, and I'll see you next time.